gentlemen, our next session is From Classrooms to Careers, Skilling the Next Gen. In this session, we will analyze the skill gap that exists today and what measures need to be taken to bridge the skill gap in times of fast-changing technology. Also, the importance of upskilling and reskilling, and how to leverage new technologies like AI to identify and bridge that skill gap that exists. Let me welcome on stage our next set of speakers. Dr. Vidya Yeravedekar, who is the Pro-Chancellor of Symbiosis International University. Warm welcome to you, ma'am. Thank you so much. We also have with us Professor Bharat Bhaskar, the Director of IIM Ahmedabad, with us on the platform. Thank you so much, sir. Tariq Chauhan, Vice Chairman, EFS Facilities Services Group, to also be with me on the stage. I'd be happy to moderate this session with you to really understand what's next in the world of education. Thank you. I hope everybody's staying here, which means that everybody's liked the previous session. Thank you so much, His Excellency. And we hope to build on to that conversation yet again. And this is a topic that most of us are very, very interested in, either because of our future generation, people around us. And of course, we do know that the future leaders will emerge from whatever we discuss today on this platform, and whether things are going right in this direction in the world of fast-changing technology. Thank you so much. I'm going to be starting off with Dr. Vidya. And I want to understand from you, everybody's been talking about AI. I think everybody's first question is, will AI replace jobs? And, I'm sure that is one question that all your students also ask you all the time. So, beyond this question, let's try and find out that, yes, people say that, no, AI will not replace your jobs, but you will need to learn how to use AI best. So how do you make sure that, the future generation, students of today, are better equipped to work with AI and changing technology?
Sure. Thank you very much. First of all, let me thank India Today for inviting us, Symbiosis, here. And we've just launched our campus last year. Thank you to the Indian government as well as the government here for the huge support that we've got. This question, I think, has been repeatedly asked to all of us as academics in almost every platform. And what you say is very right. I don't think really AI is going to lose, the coming of AI is going to lose jobs for students. In fact, they'll have to look at jobs differently, or they'll have to skill themselves differently. And I think what it also means is AI is not all about engineering. So AI education is not about engineering. So you see many institutions offering BTech in artificial intelligence and create manpower or capability for the corporate sector who understand AI. What we have done is a little different. We launched the Symbiosis Artificial Intelligence Institute recently, where we have launched 2 programs, BSc in AI and BBA in AI, and the different domains of applications of AI, because I think that's more critical. So, applications in healthcare, as the Council General very rightly said, immense applications of AI in agriculture, in cybersecurity, and several other fields, including, of course, finance, HR, operations, everything to do with management. So I think it's very important for us as academics to teach AI in a different way. Honestly, applications of AI more than just the technology involved. And that's what we have done. We've launched such a program here as well in Dubai, so that we really produce capable individuals to apply AI. We also do a lot of research in the applications of AI. So we have set up in Dubai, like what we have in India, a center for applied artificial intelligence. It's a research center. So we have collaborations with a lot of industry here.
Absolutely. I'll come to Professor Bharat Bhaskar now to understand from you, sir, with respect to how do you think you are constantly looking at evolving curriculum in the changing times at this time, like we're talking about the fast-changing technologies. We do not know what next will come up tomorrow. The way AI has come in and, probably spread across our lives in such a short span of time, it's difficult to foresee what kind of more technologies will come in, and we need to be prepared for that. So how do you keep ensuring that you stay ahead with your evolving curricula, sir?
Thank you for asking that, because one thing is for sure, that AI is not new. It has evolved over 40, 50 years. It has taken time and it has been evolving, and what has happened today we have to understand. Before we talk about whether the job will be created, whether curriculum needs to be enhanced and modified accordingly, There are two aspects of AI. And when we talk of AI, we only think of ChatGPT and what we call the OpenAI kind of innovation or large language models. That's what has created the buzz around the world today. But bigger intervention is happening for past decade, which what we call is the autonomous world. From automation, we have moved to the autonomous world. Today, you look at any modern car factory of BMW, etc., and so on, there are different kind of robots which are actually manufacturing. When I said 30 years ago, 20 years ago, also robots were manufacturing cars. But the fundamental difference in today's manufacturing environment is that robots and humans are working next to each other. Earlier, they were caged in one side, all the robots doing their part of job, humans doing their part of job. And there were dangerous robots because if a human comes on their way, you will be hurt. Here, they're nimble, meaning that one picks up the gearbox assembly if the human is preparing. The task of picking up the gear itself, which is about 8 to 10 kg, and placing it and assembling it is left to the robot. If human is slow, robot slows down. If human is fast, robot speeds up. What we call the adaptable and adjustable robots. There are many such sensitive robots. Fanuc, as a robotics company, has been manufacturing robots which continuously adapt to the human behavior, which means the jobs will be lost because of the autonomous nature of them, but there will be newer jobs created. Because if you look from the market perspective, we used to have customized products in the previous generation. We liked, but today, with mass manufacturing assembly lines, we came into the fast production, standardized production, and so on, which provided you lots of capabilities of good quality products or quality assurance, but our customizability went away. If you wanted to buy a shirt, it is available in only fixed sizes, whether your body is capable of fitting it into, you have to fit your body into one of those numbers. Today, with this nimble robots, we can now go back to the customized manufacturing again. Car or product manufactured to my requirements at a mass production cost. Now, the newer kind of jobs the job will be lost, but the job growth will happen. Now, our curriculums have to now adapt, and we have to understand what's happening in the service industry and manufacturing industry, because we produce managers and leaders. They have to understand and figure it out. If this is the environment, what are the newer issues? Newer issues which are going to emerge now are going to be of the nature that in this kind of environment, human resource management itself will take a new relook into it. Because humans will get tired working on the same assembly line. The adaptable robot will continue to work. Now, what kind of human resource management or what kind of a factory human resource planning should be done? Also, we need to understand the speed and optimization of the assembly lines. Earlier, we have been working on a literature, we have been teaching our students or the future managers what kind of optimal assembly lines are going to be there, what are kind of optimal supply chains and distribution chains are going to be there. All are going to be highly impacted by that. We need to understand and design curriculum, or I should say rather than understand and evolve our curriculum from where we are to integrate these technologies, impact on it, and continue to focus on it. And that's why we have been launching our programs in these directions. In IIM Ahmedabad campus, we launched a program related to advanced business analytics. Idea was exactly similar. We realized one of the important factors which is happening is that Dubai or UAE is investing very heavily into the AI and trying to move and become one of the leaders in the AI domain. We decided we have a great capability of producing the leaders of the future. But the environment in India may not be available to us, and as IIM Ahmedabad alone, we may not be able to invest into that kind of AI-enabled environment and produce the managers who are capable of working with that AI-enabled environment. So we've decided to set up a campus in Dubai itself, with the whole idea that we'll be leveraging on the AI centricity of this country, produce the newer knowledge and newer curriculum, and adapt that curriculum over a period of time, and we'll be able to then also transfer back to the home campus at IIM Ahmedabad. Thus, IIM Ahmedabad will initially be enriching the Dubai campus, and in future, Dubai campus should be enriching the IIM Ahmedabad campus. And we decided the speed in AI is very fast.
Yeah.
So we cannot wait for setting up a campus in a long duration or long term. So we decided to launch from this September the first batch, and we have a very short window, but we have already started admitting people for our one-year MBA program because of that, because we don't want to miss out on this window of opportunity which has opened up and lose our lead, which we have been creating for decades at IIM Ahmedabad.
Absolutely. Mr. Tariq Chauhan, I want to understand, we are understanding and focusing on what to teach from henceforth, how to adapt into the changing world. But I think what's also important is how we teach. What is the aspect that you're really focusing on, and how do you think that aspect can grow?
So let me give you a little bit of my journey. Since I manage a company which operates a large number of people across different skill sets. We operate in about 35 countries, employing about 37,000 people. And these people are from different backgrounds. There are people who are engineers, there are even highly skilled technicians, there are semi-skilled people. What we realized that there is a significant challenge with the way education system is operating. And with my highest regard to one of the finest colleges, and I have a high regards, what India has done on the higher education. But today, when I look to 2/3 of my workforce is largely Indian, I would say. And when I go and, I have skill institutes running in India. I have 4 skill academies. I've been looking around to, hire people across various colleges, working on various partnerships. The biggest challenge is the colleges and universities are not prepared. And this is not only India's problem. It's a global problem. Today, I sit on Emerge Education as a joint initiative with UK government and US and few other. What we realized there, that the 3-year education we need to really relook at this.
Correct.
We need to do goal alignment of the students at the 12th standard through psychometric investments. The 3-year education needs to be consolidated into first year. Second year has to move to discipline and interest-based. And a 3rd year has to be completely in an incubation. Today, sir, I run 3 young leaders program across 3 countries, offering, incubation, which is an investment from me. I, with a single margin business, cannot afford that. So colleges, universities, they need to work back on building this partnership with and I'm more than happy, and I'm sure companies are prepared to do that. But how do we do this? Smart classrooms. Yes, AI, according to me, AI is an upskilling tool. It should not be an insecurity for anyone. Kind of, the advantages and the leverage of AI is amazing in education at very early stages. It is a validation tool. It should not be seen that way. So I believe the colleges, universities, and the private sector, of course, government needs to do something about it. And I have, built on a program today, which is currently we are running it with 2 colleges, where we've been able to, turn around engineers in a much faster manner. They're ready to work, because work readiness, I'm not going to put 18 months. And this is one of the reasons what is happening with more and more students, when they come as interns, it's like a revolving door for them. They go in and out, and they are in a discovery mode what to do. And that's why colleges and universities and the companies need to work together on it.
Absolutely. I'll try to build on that and ask you something further, something that we've all been reading in India also of late, and we've been covering that news as well. When we talk about you are creating future-ready students, you're creating, a batch of students which is ready to take on the workspace almost on day one. But the problem happens is when large IT companies like Infosys start laying off thousands and thousands of people in their internship period, saying that they are not fully equipped with what their skills should be. How do you address that gap? I think that's something that is scaring and unnerving a lot of students out there.
So I think the answer to this is industry-academia interface. I mean, as much as academic institutions or universities require industry partnerships or collaborations, it should be the other way around as well. And I'll give you two examples that Symbiosis has done. So Bajaj Auto, which is one of the largest automobile companies based out of Pune, has set up, invested almost 30 crores in setting up a Bajaj Excellence Skill Training Lab at the Symbiosis campus. And they did it with us, and now they're expanding to other universities down south, up north, etc. The objective is not to skill the engineering students of Symbiosis, because anyways, Symbiosis is a little way ahead from others, but the mandate given to us is that while you use these machines in your engineering program for the training of your students, at least for 6 months, create a program where students from engineering colleges in rural Maharashtra get trained. And it's such a beautiful I would say experiment that we are carrying out, and I personally am so satisfied. Me and Rajiv Bajaj, when we address these students, it gives us self-satisfaction that when these students come in, A, they don't know how to operate. They've never even entered a lab with these kind of machines. B is their self-confidence. They can't even utter a sentence of Marathi, leave alone speak in English. But at the end of 6 months, when we give them a diploma, Rajiv Bajaj comes himself, and these very students explain to him in fluent English, the working of those machines, where they will be used in the industry, etc., and get placed on campus of Symbiosis even before they pass out their engineering from their respective colleges. Likewise, Infosys has set up a Makers Lab on the campus where entrepreneurship skills are, enhanced or encouraged. Again, not just for our students, but for those 35 villages that we've adopted around the university campus, where young students can actually come in, like a Todo Jodo lab, like a Tinker lab that has been created, use those 3D printing machines and so on. And we've mapped over the last 6 months, it's been 6 months, and the amazing response that we've got from students across other colleges not even from Pune, but outskirts of Pune, who know that there is a lab like this, and our faculty students mentor them and help them. So I think the key answer to this question that you've asked is that industries must come forward. CII, FICCI, ASSOCHAM are doing their bit. I sit as chairperson on the FICCI Higher Education Committee, and we've done amazing work, with several colleges which require this kind of help. And as you very rightly said, that we're talking about a curriculum change with an IMA and Symbiosis. Ideally, in the next panel, you should really have, some principals of colleges that really struggle, to bring about even the slightest change, because universities that they're affiliated with are so not flexible and rigid that curriculums don't change for almost several years. What can those principals do? So here is the part where, and I would also appreciate the efforts of the Indian government, where they have launched a lot of there's of course a whole skills ministry and doing a lot of skilling programs under the NSDC. But apart from that, the apprenticeship program and so on. But somewhere, I think the chambers, the industry, and academia need to come together to solve this problem.
Okay. Dr. Bhaskar, I want to understand from you, especially when it comes to students feeling unprepared for the corporate world. What is that mindset shift or skill shift that they really need to adapt to be able to see themselves growing up the ladder?
The first and foremost, what curriculum they are going through. The corporate readiness comes based upon the preparation being done at the graduating institute itself. For example, our whole curriculum is designed for making them corporate ready. So we do not teach them theoretical subjects, or we don't start from theory. We start actually from the practice. We bring the corporate setup into the classroom. Our case methodology of teaching is actually that our faculty members go to the corporate sectors, do research on them, create various cases, which is the real-life decision-making scenarios, and every course is taught through those real-life scenarios. So when they go to the corporate environment, they're fully prepared. The scenario they see, they find something similarity that the case I did in the class or in the situation I had already encountered in one of the subjects was very similar to this. And that is how we say that corporate readiness can be brought only by two mechanisms. One is you teach them theoretically and then send to the corporate sector and let them have 6 months to 18 months of a learning under some mentor. Other is that you bring the mentorship through faculty, by faculty does the studying of and creating those cases, and create the classroom environment in that. Also, we have an advantage unlike other places because we only produce the future leaders and future managers. We also recognize that human beings are good in 4 aspects: leadership, the capability to have empathy, the creativity, and finally, ability to judge things or make decisions and get the feedback of decisions and so on. Once we focus on that, our all cases, whether they are a finance case they're studying, whether they are HR case they're studying, we do not treat the case from a single dimension that this is a marketing case and let's worry about marketing aspect. We look at it, the scenario in entirety. And under this kind of a framework, when we begin to analyze, we enhance all these capabilities of the human being. And that is how we deal with the problem of a corporate readiness of that. As I said, engineering schools probably will not be able to follow our undergraduate programs, may not be able to follow the same methodology. Methodology will depend upon the kind of input you are taking and what you are preparing them for. Undergraduate methodology, they come as a raw material. Probably you do have to imbibe lots of theoretical and practical setups, scenarios in them, and then prepare. So I would say even in undergraduate programs, and India has become now a 4-year undergraduate program, at least 4th year or last part of the 3rd year should be devoted for preparing them with certain skills. I would not call them corporate leadership, but at least certain skills, which we call employable skills. One of the things in education sector, many universities have been always riding a high citadel, that we are about the knowledge creation, we are about the knowledge imparting, not matching with the corporate sector. If they fit into the corporate sector, that's their challenge, not our challenge. I think today's environment requires industry and academia both to converge, and academia also should realize that ultimately you are producing, some of them will be that, yes, the knowledge creators of the future, but vast majority of them will require a job, and so does the economy will require them to be productive member of the economic setup, and that's where the skills come into the picture, and they need to acquire certain skills, whichever field undergraduate degree they are doing, which are employable skills.
Correct.
And that's what probably this industry should also come forward, as Vidya was pointing out, that industry should also come forward and bring those skills into the classroom, because many a time faculty members over a period of time may not be able to keep up to date capability of those skills. Their skill imparting abilities may be 3 years behind. And in today's, maybe 2 decades ago, 3 years behind was not much.
Yeah.
But today, being 3 years behind means a whole lot. And that's why I say industry should also be prepared, and so does the university should be prepared to invite industry people in the last finishing part of the curriculum, that they are made industry ready by delivering appropriate skills to them.
Okay. Both Dr. Vidya and Ms. Bhaskar has also talked about, industry and academia partnership. You wanted to make your point also, but apart from that...
I just wanted to add on what Dr.
just
said.
One more point that I want you to elaborate on is, where is the gap? Why do you think the industry is not coming as forward?
I don't think the issue, the challenge of the industry, we are running under a very tight competition. The cost is limitation. Very few of us have got that much of developmental cost to provide for bringing somebody on board, and he's in a discovery mode, and then ultimately he or she, and then ultimately they leave the organization. What is important is an incubation environment, and which is, I strongly believe in it. But look at across the different sections, different nature of jobs. If I'm looking for vocational job with plus 12 standard, you need very different dynamics out there. And this is one of the biggest reasons in India today where you find the problem, not only in India or globally. There's an 85 million deficit in skills at this moment globally. 3 to 4 million in Europe alone. In Australia, it is much higher. Americas have anything. India, you are aware of it already, between the employability and employment. So what is important first is blended education approach. With cognitive element coming in, you need, and I have succeeded very well in my Young Leaders program. In fact, it's one of the, I must say a flagship program of us, which has really turned around senior managers and director over 4 and 5 to 7 years because of quick progression of these people who have come through it. So the blended learning has to come in, 20, 30, 50 concept. 20% only in the classroom, 30% in the online and through the visual aids and the various, and 50% on the job. And that's exactly what has transformed. In colleges and universities, it is possible. One is we need to append our curriculums, the built environment. See, today the theoretical context is changed so much. With AI coming, with so much of help is available to teachers. Teachers need to append themselves. And then ultimately, students are already, they have that ability because they have come from a different mindset. I remember all my time when my teachers have taught me by notes. And those notes were possibly 10 years back, 20 years back, 30 years back, with some element of research. When I went to Harvard Business School, I did, see a different world out there. So what I'm trying to explain is, we are more than happy. And I'm running currently 7 skilling institutes, 3 running and 3 more are coming. I'm already working on outreach with skilling institutes like Skill India, with the Prime Minister's office and others. So I'm more than happy to do so. And but not 1 in a billion, not IIM Ahmedabad, it's 1 in a billion. Symbiosis is also amongst that. We need to go to the lowest level. We need to go and rework and relook at the way privatization of education in India has happened, the quality of education. We need to revive and revolutionize the entire education.
Okay.
Only then things would happen.
Absolutely. Please go
I
ahead.
think here, you need to bring in your alumni also in a big way and involve alumni. When you talk about industry, who is the industry really? The best people who can come and contribute are your alumni. And no matter whether it's a Symbiosis or a IIM Ahmedabad or some college in Kolhapur or Satara or wherever in Maharashtra, alumni are doing exceedingly well. Unfortunately, colleges and typically public sector universities don't involve their alumni as much as we in the private sector, or of course IIM Ahmedabad has its own. We've mapped about 300,000 alumni, out of which 1,028 are here in Dubai. And the Council General, sir, is aware that, the kind of support that we have from alumni, they come and teach in classrooms, they contribute to be on the board of studies, on the academic council, even on the board of management of the university, we have alumni. So I think the more you involve your alumni, the better, your institution would be. And I think that's something that typically Indian colleges and universities do miss out. The other, when we've set up a campus here, the other challenge that I see is while in some of the Indian universities, we see a lot of industry participation by establishment of laboratories, like I mentioned about Bajaj and others. I think that same culture should come in here in this region as well. And that's exactly what we are trying to tell our alumni here in Dubai, that when we set up a center for applied artificial intelligence, how many of you can really come here and dedicate yourself by way of time, resources, and even maybe some kind of new technologies that you can bring in, because that's your, giving back to your institution to create people who are like you and who can succeed like you.
Okay. Professor Bhaskar, I want to come to you and I want to understand on the employability aspect again, and that too largely on global employability, not just in your own respective countries. How are you really addressing that aspect? You did talk about how industry needs to collaborate with academia, how you're already upskilling. But is the upskilling happening at a stage when there could be global employability for students too?
The global employability, in the traditional sense, we are already producing for that. But what is happening is the new kind of jobs which are getting created. If you see, US right now is looking for at least 6 million people who are AI trained and AI capable and competent. The industry is suffering in some sense because we don't have those. You look at the modern manufacturing industry, which is autonomous elements in it. There are more than 400,000 jobs which are available, but they are not able to fulfill them. That is where lies the opportunity that we need to now produce. And if we don't produce, and as IIM Ahmedabad, we cannot address the masses problem, we only produce the leaders, so we will address the leadership problem. But masses problem will be then addressed by people like Tariq. What happened in India's first wave, or when IT's global first wave? When IT's global wave came in 90s, world had acute shortage of IT professionals. The engineering institutions in India, everybody tried creating, but they were not good enough or fast enough. So NIIT, Aptech, you name dozens of such training institutes, or what you call the today skilling institutes, popped up, and they produced people which actually flooded the US market and were able to provide employment. So India has a great deal of human resource available, except it needs to be adapted. So if universities don't adopt, universities and private institutions as well as the other institutions which are available don't adopt, people like Tariq Jawan's institutions will come up. They'll create an environment, whether it's a recognized certificate, unrecognized certificate, it doesn't matter. You remember those certificates produced by the IT training institutes were initially not recognized by anyone. Then government had to set up a mechanism called DOE-ACC recognition, O level, A level, B level certificates, and B level was called the BTech equivalent at that point of time. So it will happen naturally because the demand is going to be there. If we plan it out, it will happen in a more professional fashion, more wonderful fashion. Other aspect we just wanted to add, that we talked about disemployability. But who is going to create employment? Traditional industries are not going to shift into this space. If you look at the IT industry in India, how many companies other than the TCS are actually the traditional people? They're all Infosys to every company came out of nowhere or came out of a new set of entrepreneurs. The same entrepreneurship era is once again arriving in AI environment. And that's where we require Indian entrepreneurial spirit and capital and environmental exposure of Dubai kind of environment. And that is where we also intend to add immediately or as soon as possible one of the centers here, which we have very successfully done in India, called IIMA Ventures. Originally we used to call it Center for CIIE, but then everybody used the same name across the country, so we called ourselves now IIMA Ventures. Idea there is, and what we do, we not only produce people there, we say that don't take the job. We will provide you environment, we will provide you initial support for 2 years. The business idea which you have, you go and invest in that business idea, and then we also create the capital or funds in the IIMA Ventures. Those funds will support you. We have been, you'd be surprised to know some of the deep tech industry in India, starting from IdeaForge, ePlane, Bellatrix, and Agnikul, all had the initial seed funding and were incubated by IIM Ahmedabad's IIMA Ventures. And we need to replicate that story also in Dubai because we find it to be a very thriving environment for entrepreneurship. The industry may get born here, but will find the market in India itself because that's going to be a very large market. So we need to produce and look for that kind of a future where leaders will be able to create these new kind of jobs.
Absolutely. In fact, this is what I was coming to, and I want Mr. Chauhan also to build on it. How do you, all those who are working with academics at this point in time deal with that dilemma of whether you want to create job-ready students or you want to create, people who want to be creators of jobs going forward?
I would like to, I will tell you in a current context, happiness is my focus. And unless until you ask the child what makes you happy, that's more important. Definitely job readiness is important, but both personal, professional and functional attributes has to be aligned. We need to work on soft skills, and work readiness is about, today average child get concerned about small stress level. Work, comes along with its own, it requires a specific ecosystem. So I think that readiness, we are not talking about IIMs here. Those boys and girls are definitely sitting on a much IQ level. Let's talk about ordinary colleges and universities, what we need to do there, And that is where my interest is, because I don't hire very intelligent people. Our business, we are in a single-digit number. We look at very basic skills, and then we elevate people. We make extraordinary out of ordinary. And for that, happiness is very important. And being a people-first organization, that's how I build the organization. Building it from 20 million to 2.8 billion now.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Dr. Vidya, last question to you, 1.5 minutes remaining. And I think one of the key aspects that everybody who's either hiring or is working at very high positions, many of them are here, are dealing with is employability of Gen Z. I think there has been so many debate about as to whether Gen Z will be able to, of course they are very smart, they're very agile, they have newer ideas, they are vibrant, but, the hard work, that was needed or, slightest of the stress levels and they are out. How do you deal with all of that and how are you prepping Gen Z and Gen Alpha, Beta now going forward?
No, honestly, I think, the job market also requires these kind of smart Gen Z people. Who are technologically savvy and so on. Even when we hire directors earlier, we would hire someone who's really, very senior by age, by wisdom, by, of course, other than the knowledge and etc., the qualifications, etc. But today our Vice Chancellor is a 45-year-old individual, very technologically savvy, knows AI, this, that, and the other. So imagine in a university setup, when you look at these qualities, I'm sure companies also do. Yes, the attention span of the Gen Z is limited and, maybe the attrition would be, for the corporate sector, would be much higher these days than what, I remember during my father's time when he ran Symbiosis, it was like Anita who's with us for 36 years plus, etc. Now I say even if someone is there with you for 5 years, it's a long period. So you should be happy that someone is there. Teachers during my time when I went to school, the teacher that you saw in Standard 1, you also saw her when you passed out of Standard 10. How many schools have teachers who are there for even 10 years? So I think even as job givers, we have to accept this kind of, dynamism in the work environment. And as long as work is done well, ethically, honestly, and the way you want the work to be done, I don't think we should stick around and say that someone should be with you for a longer period of time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vidya. Thank you, Mr. Chauhan, and thank you, Professor Bhaskar, for being with us.